the advanced thermal, theirs was up, if I remember correctly, according to the paperwork, is in March. So we kind of held it up because we didn't have legal, and I think there was a few other issues with that one. But I also remember counsel, Mr. Leone, stating that he didn't want them to get a second extension. I've got the paperwork here where it was in the minutes. I think it was last meeting, two meetings ago, Mr. Renault, member Renault, had asked him, well, because then he said, yeah, they should get it. And he said, well, what changed? Well, I had a meeting with them, and they should get it now. So I just wanted to ask Mr. Leone, what changed? Why are we, now is he presenting this again? On the Salvatore property, that one there, I'm still kind of confused because there's 4 files upstairs. I don't think they've been put together yet. When you looked at we talked a little bit about the ST60s, that was a 2-year agreement, if I read it correctly. The agreement was up in 2021. They didn't come back and reapply to the IDA. All Paul did was change the dates on the ST60. We don't know if he actually submitted those documents to the state like he was supposed to. We've got 5 or 6 crossouts and new dates put in. This resolution wants to back it up to January of this year.
I don't know about either of those projects because I couldn't find anything online. So
they're up on our IDEA website. I'm almost positive all of that was up there.
Under projects?
Yeah, it was under open project. You'll see AC Power and the brewery, and because I had all that information, I got it all off the web.
So the dates are changed on it now? Crossed off and changed?
They've been crossed off and changed over the years as they reapplied.
Okay.
Yeah, well, basically, the board had no knowledge of this happening. He was just doing it.
Well, he mentioned last time I was here, the last meeting, that he said he was going to change the date again.
And this is something to where if you looked at the report from the state, they were saying the board's supposed to be more involved in this and reviewing these things, and it's not happening.
It's going to go all the way back to.
I'm trying to. I do have it here somewhere.
It's going to go all the way back.
Paperwork. Yeah, it was the ST60s were the tax form that the state gets to show that we extended this, and Kevin explained to me, because him and I had a little discussion on it, that as long as the money amount wasn't changed, but still.
But the project is active.
It's active, right.
You're still using the exemption for the project for which they were reduced. You can grant an extension.
It was.
But there would have been.
Vote.
The IDA would have set a level.
Yeah.
To say you're eligible for sales taxable purchases of up to.
Kevin, what year was it originally, so we can find it on the website? You remember?
That was done, I believe it was July of 2019.
Specifically, but I think the extension
Was the original for Salvatore.
I wouldn't even know how to find it.
I just went up on the LIDA.
Yeah, because there was a big lag of
Pulled
time
down.
where they weren't
It
active.
used to be up there.
A lot of projects stop, right? You reduce them and then.
Both of them were up. Well, actually, there's like 5 that were shown. I haven't looked at it
Give me
recently.
one second. So it was, it was a tax piece, sales tax piece for patio, I remember that much. It had been changed, it had been extended multiple years, the reason being COVID, because they weren't open. And it's for Salvatore's, not Russell's, right? Salvatore.
No,
No.
this is the catch-22. Both names are on it. It's actually Russell's when you look at the address. It's Russell's Chops and More. This is what I'm saying. The paperwork is very confusing. Some of it's upstairs. And that's why I'm kind of just. That's that one.
So one of the issues that I'm running into is that we're going to have these for a year because he was given permission to sign off on extensions. So we have to come up with something to say where the line in the sand is.
Well, the catch-22 with this is in February or March. The chair had told him that we were all here when he said to reapply, have them reapply because the contract had basically expired and the paperwork wasn't resubmitted. Now, like I said, if you want to go forward with it, I'm open to the idea, but the catch-22 is now we're giving,
Right.
we got contracts that are expired and we're giving extensions to contracts that have already expired.
And I think we're going to constantly run into that until the next, for the full 12 months from January to now, because each one's going to come back, but this is what we did before.
And
for
that's
us
where,
For
yeah.
us to say, cold stop 30 days, can we cold stop 30 days on something that's been a common practice?
I don't know that I have my arms around the issue.
So Paul was given permission by the former board that if they came to him and he saw it fit to extend,
Exemption.
right, he could. He could fill out the form, the ST, I'm sorry, I didn't bring it with me, that one's on my desk.
Yeah.
ST60?
ST60,
ST60.
he could resubmit it, make changes to it, resubmit it, and go forward.
Okay, so he had the authorization.
Yes, from the former board.
So, and the current board hasn't revoked that authorization.
We've asked that each one come before us before it's extended.
Okay, and that's why I'm on the board agenda today.
Right. But there's a few that as we were changing over, that kind of, and Salvatore's is one of them, Salvatore's, Thermal, Best.
Well, Thermal was within its,
right.
Hey, Paul, can you close that door, Paul? Can you, oh.
yeah, Thermal was only, that was because on his recommendation at one point, it said not to get it.
Right,
Not to give it, and now that he's here, we can
right,
discuss
he
it
had
with
a
him.
meeting on what,
But is there anything in writing that says no matter, like, what, is there standard protocols as to how it should be handled?
What's that?
The extension, when something expires, like what's the standard, or what's the,
Well, this is what I'm trying to wrap my arms around, because it just seems if we've got a written contract and the contract's not being enforced, what's the sense of having a contract?
Yeah, that's what they're.
and extending it when, well, what are the rules for someone to reapply?
Well, and this is where
Be consistent.
they were saying we should be involved in it. We should be involved in it. Hey, Paul, how you doing?
anybody have a Wi-Fi password for Lancaster?
I talked to you this morning.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's,
Oiling,
I think it's,
Good, how are you?
mine upstairs is
did
trust
Mr.
no one.
Church.
Kevin, would you be able to explain to us, like, reasons why sales tax extensions would happen?
Hi, Shannon.
Hi, Mr. Malone, how are you? How are you?
I'm sorry.
Reasons why sales tax extensions would happen?
Oh, sure. There's a lot of different reasons why a project might need additional time to utilize a sales tax exemption. You know, if a company comes to the board and they haven't gotten all their approvals yet from the town, right, and they're still going through the municipal process, they could run into some delays there. So the board here could approve the project for sales tax exemption. And we're still waiting for the municipal part of the project to move. That pushes their construction schedule down the road, and they're not using the sales tax exemption from when you introduced it. So there could be that period. And I think the obvious one is COVID, right? I mean, COVID delayed a lot of projects where they just could not
That
get
was
off
the
the
original.
ground. So if you introduced a project in 2019, January of 2020, and 2 months later the world stops for a very long time, like that's another reason why you might not use that exemption.
That's why the
It's a timing
questions come in.
And, you know, this is all assuming the project's open, right? And it's still under
Right.
construction. So utilizing the sales tax exemption during the
Yeah, I asked them to call them and
construction
send
of
them.
the
I sent
project is fine. And it's just a timing question. So you might say in your first resolution, we're approving those benefits for a year, right? And then the applicant might come back after you reduce them and say, I need more time. Well, if they need more time, it's not because of something that they did necessarily. Sometimes it's simply the circumstances that their project has been delayed. So those are some reasons why you might have a situation where an exemption for sales tax might be needed, an extension.
And we do that all the time. We extend sales tax all the time.
And the second one is where the chief.
Kevin, should a project be approved before they are granted an inducement by the town?
It's not required. The board can act before that. Sometimes, you have projects that are penciling out and trying to figure out whether they're going to go forward based on whether they're going to get incentives or not. So, I mean, one of the reasons the agency works, its purpose is to induce investment. So people who are trying to put their capital stack together look at a project and say, okay, am I going to get a break on the taxes or not, right? And then they figure that into the pro forma that they're going to send to a bank, for example, to do financing. So sometimes you're going to get applicants that are come here first. One of your companies that has an application tends to be the agency. That's exactly their scenario. They want to put a project over on Alden Avenue. They haven't really started their municipal piece. They're still putting together the financing. Part of that package is talking to you folks and saying, we're interested in innovators. So I don't know if that answers your question.
And when we do the implant study, they'll show you all that too, what you're exempt from the pilot, and the sales tax, and the mortgage recording tax. We do that all the time.
Organization projects.
Okay, Paul, one of the questions that we had before you come in, maybe you can answer. We were
Can't
looking.
hear you.
Oh, okay, before you came in, we had a couple questions, because now we've got thermal and Salvador's back on our on our projects list here. Advanced Thermal, going back, you had said they shouldn't get the extension, and then when Mr. Renault asked about it, you said you sat down with them, and now you want...
I gave all the information from Advanced Technology, and I gave her all the information for Salvatore's that she was supposed to give to you. Everything.
No, but my question is you sat down with them and had a conversation, and then came back and said, okay, now we should give it to them. What you never gave us a reason why they changed their mind.
I gave everything to you. I passed everything out to you.
I didn't see that. I didn't get it.
Yeah, well, anyhow, the reason why they did it is because of, Kevin's absolutely right. What happened was some of the stuff that they could not get was because of the virus type of thing and the shortage of deliveries and everything else. And that's exactly what happened.
Okay.
On both projects.
Yeah, well, and that's why...
It was the same thing that you authorized me to give it to Premier, too. It was the same exact scenario.
Okay.
They were like 2 to 3 years behind in getting some of the stuff because of the virus.
Well, I know the pool, yeah, they were having problems with the pool, getting parts for the pool.
Well, whatever it was.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
2 years.
So,
I don't normally do that. Normally, what we used to do is the board allowed me to do 6 months extension without even an approval from the board. We have changed that now so that I bring the projects to you, but I don't give them the sales tax until I get an approval from you, and then I send the extension of the ST60, and then I send the company the ST123, which is from the state.
Right.
The state is the ST60. They get a copy of that, and Lee gets a copy of it also, and so is Kevin.
Okay.
Now,
No, it's a curiosity question. The Salvatore's, you've changed the date on the one document I have. Did you submit that document to the state so they knew that they got an extension on it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, no, only because normally you would see a separate sheet for each, and we're not getting that.
I think their sales tax exemption on this one expired in January,
January 8th, yes.
and they didn't get to me because they didn't know how long it was going to take to get all of that stuff, if you would. So that's the reason why you have it on your agenda, and that's why I brought it. What was it, into the March meeting or the April meeting,
Right.
whatever, and then you guys tabled it, and then that's why it's on the agenda now. And it's only for sales tax, it's for nothing else.
Paul, I have a question.
Yeah, well then,
So for the first resolution, it has it from March 12th until September 12th, 2022. And then for the second resolution, it's only until July 8th, 2022. Are they going to be able to complete what they need to complete by July 8th, or would we then be extending again?
we probably won't extend it. I mean, it's up to you. You want to extend it for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. Normally, we only do 6 months, but after this, you probably won't see an extension again because according to them, they should be done.
By July? Okay, so that would be enough time.
Yeah. See, and I'm calling on those companies all the time. For instance, now, I just had a meeting with Tom Sweeney just the other day, and I asked him, because that project has been going on, 2 years now, maybe 3?
Yeah.
And I asked him specifically, because we extended his sales tax also, I specifically asked him if he was going to ask for another extension, and he said no.
Okay.
And that's for phase 1. But then the other one, phase 2 is in a little bit of a problem right now, so. But yeah, in relation to what, explaining to you how I do sales tax, that's exactly how we do it. And and you gotta remember, in New York State, there is no sales tax on production equipment.
Right.
But there is on non-production equipment. And you say, well, what's production, what's non-production? Anything that doesn't make something. In other words, office furniture, racking, shelving, rugs, pictures on the wall, which could be considered a fixed asset, okay? Computers, telephone, all those things come into play. And that's why Advanced Technology, in dealing with Uniland, who was their contractor, they were behind so far because they couldn't get stuff, if you would. And that's the same thing with Russell Salvatore. Exactly the same thing.
Yep. It makes sense to me. I understand the issue much better and I'm comfortable moving forward with those resolutions.
And you're only,
You gotta show me
you're
where
only,
you
you're
find
only
these
giving them
things.
sales tax.
Me
You're
and you are gonna
not
go to
extending anything else.
Right.
They were up there.
Yeah, no, I believe it, I just,
And we do that all the time. In fact, all the IDAs do exactly what we're doing right now. And I double check to make sure. And we have lunch once a month with all the IDAs, and I double check to make sure that everything is copacetic, if you would.
Great.
Okay, do you want to go back to the open meeting law type thing? Do you want to shorten our meetings instead of starting at 3 and the meeting at 4, or?
For me, I think at least for now, until we really get into a routine and get our committees moving, this time is helpful to be able to talk through and think about how we want to structure and what we want to do. I mean, the governance committee, that staffing issue is a big conversation, and I'll be looking for direction in this work session. So my preference is it's helpful for now. There may be a time where we decide we're cranking, we understand, we're functioning, and let's move forward without it.
I need as much training as possible if
Right.
you want me to be an effective member, so these sessions do help me.
Okay, no problem. We were only,
Lynn,
the simple fact, we were
let
kind of
me give
going,
you- let me
are we
give
going to
you an
record it,
example.
not, do we need as much time up front?
Let me give you an example of different things that happened that I will not go forward until Kevin tells me I can go forward. Rich DiGiacomo, who's an attorney, he's having a company buy a building that's across the street from the place, was it that Boston hotel that had the fire? Well, there's a Canadian company that built that building. We gave them a pilot, sales tax and everything else. Well, he's now selling it, okay? But he doesn't have, Rich DiGiacomo doesn't have the contracts or anything. So I can't give anything to Kevin yet because I don't have anything yet, okay? But for instance, they're going to be asking for an extension if there's some of the pilot is left. They'll ask if they can assume the pilot. We won't give them any more. It's just a new company. But we will, when I hand that, when Rich reaches out to Kevin, we will make sure that it's a company that's not retail or so on and so forth. We make sure that it's almost identical to what the company that's there now. So we give them an extension. We don't give them an extension. We just let them assume the remaining pilot, not the sales tax or anything else. Just, like say there's 2 years left, we might give them that 2 years. But that's based on a legal opinion to make sure that what I'm doing is I give it to him first,
Right.
and then he'll contact Rich DiGiacomo, who's the attorney, and I just saw him yesterday too. So that's what happens.
Understood.
It happens all the time.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
So for the governance committee, we're in an information gathering stage right now, and I think I need a little bit more guidance from the board in terms of, I have a meeting set with Dave Manjoya with Amherst. Should I be going to all of our local IDAs? Do you know of other IDAs, just to see how they're structured? I know Amherst and Lancaster aren't comparable, but at least to start talking to some people to see what they have staffing-wise, how they function, who does the day-to-day, who sets the agendas.
Best practices.
Right.
They do exactly what we do though, then. That UTEP that's
I haven't
there.
spoken to him yet, so I'm going to have a whole list of questions for him, and
Sure.
we'll find out. But
I
is there,
used to work for the ECID, so I know what they do, so.
when I go to each of these IDAs, my plan was to just give a report back, a written report to the board members, and then are there any other specific things we want to be thinking about? Do you want governance committee to be thinking about, okay, if we're going the direction of staff, where are we going to put the staff? Do we now need to look for a space? We kind of go in circles about we can't print paper because it's the town's paper, and it's or is it going to be just dealing with the people aspect of it?
absolutely, when they switched from that being inside the town to being completely autonomous and away from them. because I don't,
Maybe comment?
I think people love the idea, but I don't think they understand the expense of the idea. I mean, you hire somebody and you no longer need their services, you're paying for unemployment. It's not, all right, well, bad idea, we're gonna change it today. Just the sheer expense of employees is, not to mention the rules and the HR that goes with it.
And that's where the services, when they were all with the town, with the way it was set up, it was all basically internal, so you had town employees working on the IDA, which is a state entity.
Right.
We separated ourselves completely, like Amherst is completely paid. They've got their own building, they've got everything is completely separate, and a paid staff. We don't have that. We're trying to split the wood here and keep the costs down, but still provide the service. So, yeah, like the computer system, we got to find a place to put the main terminal, so we're going to have to reach out to the town board to maybe your area that we can put this in, to where she would have access to put information in, or whoever, but it wouldn't be, accessible by anybody else but authorized people.
And it's not possible to put that tab just cloud-based where it's just a dual logon that she can access from any terminal. That's one we got to look at, because
That's what I mean. When it comes to computers, I know very basics.
Yeah, I mean, that would be-
notice everything's paper.
where we could say, here's your surface, and we know when you log on where you are, and it's all,
I didn't do the request for proposal for the computer system. Frank did that.
right. No, I'm just wondering, that's one of the ones,
Well-
I can look into it too with him.
Well, I know he said that, I talked to the gentleman that was in charge of it, and he said, if we have multiple people logging in, the first one is the only one that's gonna be able to make changes.
Right.
So you would only be able to log in and view, you wouldn't be able to do anything. And I thought he said that that would require, if each of us had our own login, that would require a server.
Server, all right.
So that's why then it came to, we don't know if the town's gonna let you put a server in, we don't know.
All right.
Saying I think, my personal, for me, from home, logging in, seeing what's going on in that, or from your, to me is fine. I don't have to make changes. We can designate one
Right.
to put everything in, and that's that, because
Yeah, got it.
Great. Let me interject, because I do the work for some of the other ideas. Like, for instance, Clarence, what they're gonna be doing is, they're gonna go with this MRB, whatever, okay? But they're not gonna be going to Dave Manjoya, they're gonna be doing it themselves. So Cindy Rochelle, she's the secretary for the Clarence IDA, and the financial officer, Lynn, whatever her last name is, they're gonna be doing the implant studies through the MRB, okay?
Right.
Only because they're gonna be connected to the town's computer. So that's how that's working. So we're not, when I do a Clarence IDA project, I will hand it to the attorney, blah, 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 and then the implant study will be done by them. Now, in our case, we will give it to, once Kevin gives me the okay, I then take it to Dave Manjoya from the Amherst IDA, and he does my implant studies for me, which we pay him $250.
Now, the problem, not
Go
to
ahead.
interrupt, the problem with that is you can't do an implant study right now. And I just wanna make sure everybody's aware, because we don't have the computer program, the town is not gonna give him access
Right.
to our computer. So until that issue is, you really can't do anything for these new applications.
Well, then I'm gonna look at Kevin right now. So then we can't do a project unless we have an implant study, right?
Well, let me see if I
Go
can
ahead.
align this a little bit. The board approved Dave to perform the cost, it's a cost benefit study, right?
Right.
That's required as any project must have a cost benefit study completed as part of what you guys look at before you approve it. So this software, this MRB software, replaced implant. Implant's the old project, it's no longer supported, so they moved it, most ideas moved to MRB. I was under the impression, frankly, that Dave was doing that from Amherst's offices.
He was.
So I don't
He
know
is.
that it matters that it's here or not. That you will get copies
Right.
of it, we'll find a home for it under the project documents.
No,
on the
he
website.
has to have a login, that's why Clarence isn't going with him. He has to have a login and access our database to be able to do it.
Is MRB living in the town's database?
Yes. Well, it's not living anywhere right now. They sent me the spreadsheet for it.
And that's what Clarence is doing.
Yeah,
And they're doing it through
And the town
MRB,
doesn't want him
but
to
they're
have
doing it through
access.
their computer.
Right.
They're doing it
There's
through their
no
computer
bonding, no licensing, no,
no.
This is one of the flies. They used to do it. They did it with no problem, but.
so
No,
a
we
bonded
can't.
representative couldn't with
Well, that's
back-
not my, is a decision the board would make,
Guess we can
but
ask the
I don't
board.
know. I don't know. I know right now, no.
So we're back to
All right,
equipment.
well, I mean,
We're back to an
that's
equipment
one that
problem.
we can have Dino approach and ask there. I mean, if they're bonded and their background's done, there should be no, I would think.
Yeah, but by law, you have to do an implant study.
Right, no, but what I'm saying is to have a representative that, for us, that works with the town, that's backgrounded, bonded, to have access,
How does it have to live on the town server?
I'm not sure.
To me, if you're contracting out for the service, the contractor's providing that part of it. I mean,
Yeah.
I could be wrong, I'll talk to Dave, but
Yeah.
him a lot. I'm happy to reach out to him and just ask him how he plans to do this. But I'm not sure we have the information in front of us that really
Right.
explains how this is done. It is, someone said it here, well, we can't move forward. You're right.
Right.
You have to have a cost benefit study in order to advance projects to a new.
And the MRB is the newest version.
Yeah, it's the newest contractor essentially, the new software, this implant, just the guy retired essentially.
Yeah.
He said, I'm not supporting it anymore. So
Shannon,
everybody
if you
might
had,
have built it.
when the meeting's over, I have a copy of what
Okay,
the MRB does.
here's just
Okay.
a thought.
Yeah.
I can show you.
We bought the
Shannon.
program already, correct?
Well, we'll
We-
be paying for it today.
we're gonna buy the program, and we're already using Amherst to do it. Why can't we just give them that program that we paid for and just say, okay, here's our program, you can use this program?
There's nothing really confidential going into the program, right? It's gonna generate reports that are public. You're gonna live on your website.
It's gathering the information from the town. Okay.
Yeah, actually, what I give to the Amherst IDA when he tells me I got my go-ahead, I actually bring everything that that you guys have done and say, okay, go forward. I actually give it to David, and him and I sit down and we do it right there in front of us. We take the actual application, so he sees everything. But I don't know about getting into
Right.
the town computer thing.
So that's all we need is that piece of information, so we know how to proceed with what.
Or you could have MRB do it. MRB can do it for the IDA for an hourly rate. That's another option.
So if you're offering, to me, if you're offering to reach out to Dave and see and report back to the board, that would make sense to me, if that
Yeah.
makes sense to everybody else.
Yeah, that would be the start, and MRB is the backup, so.
Great.
I'll be with David next Tuesday if you want. We do a casual thing, him and I, all the time, and we can talk about that. But I'd rather have Kevin do it because then we do it legally.
Yep, I agree.
So we could possibly have a solution by the next board meeting.
Yes.
He's been doing,
Hopefully.
David's been doing the Clarence IDA and the Lancaster IDA for at least, for as long as I can remember. I just take him the application, then we do it. We don't do it until we get approval.
But the application is.
Exactly.
In a position where it's deemed complete, close to complete, so.
Very good. I think the other question we had was on the billing, the pilot billing, you going to clearance?
Yeah.
Is that something we have to do, or is it something the town should give authorization, because you've got to talk to Mr. Fowler
What's that
about it?
noise? You know what, Lynn? I got a perfect idea. Why don't I just ask David if he wants to come to the next board meeting on June the 10th? And then you can question him as to different things that you might not want, that you might have on your mind. Let me put it to you that way.
I have a meeting set up with him on the 17th. So I already have a phone call
But he
scheduled.
hasn't called me yet, so I don't, and I have lunch with him on the 18th, so.
So I'll touch base with him and be able to just pick his brain a little bit and gather the information that I need from governance committee to be able to have a reasonable report to bring back to the
Is it
board.
appropriate if I accompany you on that meeting?
I think it's That's a question for you. It's governance committee. So governance committee is me, Dino, Frank.
Okay.
But are there going to be three of you, sir?
No.
No? Just-
Well, and it's a phone call.
Oh, okay. I don't see that, I don't think there'd be a problem.
Speakers?
Sounds like it's happening more. Whatever it is.
Well, I'm just trying to grasp onto anything I can to learn,
Understood.
so, if appropriate, I mean.
I had some questions on operations. I know I was talking with Dino about it a few days ago, and Kevin and I had touched base today, trying to get in the flow of how we get our information, when we touch base. I know, Kevin, you had said that other IDAs have their public hearings at different times than the board meetings, and perhaps it would be reasonable to try and gather for a discussion or have someone discuss with you, whether that be Dino or someone appointed about 2 weeks before the meeting could you explain to the board like how other boards function, what you see in other boards in terms of getting to the meeting and having all the information that we need?
Right, so I think we're pivoting towards the board's authority to approve projects, right? And, the process is, just to start, is it really begins with an application from the company. And that gets vetted, and we talked about that. Where I think Lynn is going is, where does the board interface? Where's the board first learning about a project? And one of the things that is required if we give more than $100,000 in benefits is you have a public hearing. If it's less than that, there's not even a requirement for a public hearing. You don't have to do it. The question, I think, for you guys is, where's your comfort level in terms of being engaged in the process? So to go to Lynn's question of what other IDAs do, there's no set pattern for all of them. I'll give you a couple different examples. One of the IDA clients I work with, they will present the project in general terms. The director will present the project in general terms. Hey, I've got this new project. This is what it would be involved with. We have an application and still working through it. And he almost takes the temperature of the board. And what he's really looking for is authorization to conduct a public hearing. So he actually asks for permission. Some IDAs do that, statutorily not required. But that's how that particular executive director presents that information to the board as an initial piece. There's other ways to do it. You simply have an informal presentation. Paul did that the last meeting, right? He said, here's these 3 projects, right? And I'm going to get the applications together. That's what he did. I've had the applications. We can go into those projects, maybe after this discussion. But then the question is, what happens with it from there, right? And so you have the public hearing. What is the board looking for in terms of information on the project? I think once the applications are complete, you see a copy of the application, because you're going to be voting on it ultimately, right? You want to see the cost benefits study, right? That's the MRP thing we've been talking about, right? Those are all part of the package that you look at. My office is going to generate a board resolution that's going to lay all that out. So, what other IDAs do? Some of them, like what Amherst does, is that when they have their public hearing, usually 2 weeks before their board meets, right? And then they have an executive committee that reviews and vets projects as part of that public hearing. And, and usually that means 2 weeks later, they're moving forward with the project because the executive committee, which frankly is all the board members, they just show up, right? And this is all, it's all live streamed.
And it's different at the Clarence IDA now. The Clarence IDA will do a public hearing, and then 10 minutes later, after the public hearing, they convene their IDA board meeting, and then they approve the project right then and there. So it's a 10-minute transaction from the public hearing to the actual inducement. Clarence does it all the time.
And that's how this is structured, at least on some level. So what the board has to think about is that how they want to proceed, right? When do you want the information to be presented to you, right? And this is calendar. That's all it is, right? When do you want to do it? How do you want to? There's no right or wrong answer to this, but it is up to the board, I think, ultimately, as to how you guys want your information presented and when you want it.
See, the problem that we have with Lancaster is I have to have Kevin's public hearing and resolution, not so much the resolution, but the public hearing notice. You do it in the penny saver here, but you can only, what is it, you gotta have it there by Monday to be in the paper Friday or something like that? What's the time frame for the penny saver?
I think it's Thursday at 4.
Okay.
And then it's a whole other 10 days before it really gets in the
You see what
paper.
happens, so
6
we
o'clock.
lose out.
Yeah. So if we're trying to, for example, on the projects that are before the board that we'll talk about, we're going to schedule a public hearing for those. We have to have the notice submitted to the newspaper by the 19th of May in order to give us, because it's a 10-day hearing notice window. So you could, on that basis, it'll be in the paper before March, May 31st. You got that 10 days, right? Because the next board meeting is June 10th. So again, calendaring it out. And that schedule is that truncated schedule, which is essentially, we notice it, and then you guys are going to have the hearing, and then you're voting, right? And so the question you have again is okay, where are you going to get your education on the project? And how do you want to structure that? That's up to you. That's not dictated by me. I mean, Paul will put the package together, and at the public hearing, everything will be here. And maybe it's 5 days before that, you have everything. Here's the application, here's all that, right? You can do it that way. What Clarence is doing is not wrong. What Lancaster has done, over time, which is the same structure, is not wrong. But it's a function of how those boards wanted to proceed in reviewing projects and approving them. So I think Lynn brought this up on our call because just how do we learn about the projects as a board and then vote for them? It's a fair question.
Yeah, and one of the questions I have or thoughts on this too, and I think I mentioned it to Grant going back the one day, is now we bring the projects forward and we have the public hearing. If we vote on it right away, but yet the town hasn't given any permits or any, we're kind of jumping the gun. Aren't we putting the cart before the horse? Where I would like it to go forward, but no decisions made until the town clears what they're going to do with the project.
Yeah.
Because I don't want us to turn around
One of
and,
the first questions we ask is when we go to them, have you been to the planning board?
no, but I mean, you can go to the planning board, but if they haven't given you the go-ahead or the zoning or
Well, then
the
we
town.
can't, then the IDA can't go forward either because we don't have planning board approval.
Well, I've had them at the town board meetings where they've come forward saying, I've got an IDA, and they're using it as proof for the project to go forward, and I don't want that influence to be there.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I'm sure that happens.
Yeah.
Right, and he does. I mean, anything, IDA cannot, you can approve an incentive program here for a company. It doesn't give them any right to the municipal permits. They have to go through that process and, it's, frankly, it's easier when you know it's gotten all the way through that process. But that process can be long, right? Rezoning a parcel, right? If that's what they're doing. But again, that's something the board can decide. There's not a wrong or right answer to that. When we would do a resolution for a project like that, they're coming to you. They have to go through their own secret process before this board, by the way. So, that's one thing that you're going to get, because any action taken by the board related to a project like that is subject to secret. So you do your separate seeker, and you can approve the incentive part of the project. And it's going to be subject to any of the municipal approvals being done. So what are you gaining by that? Well, you're helping the project maybe from a capital perspective move forward. So if I'm developing a project, I might be talking to lenders about a project and saying, hey, I also got this as part of our capital stack. I'm going to get a discount on our real property taxes. And that factors into eligibility potentially for financing. So there's different ways to do it. I think the projects that I've worked on have been, it's probably most of them have gone through the municipal approvals, but not all of them. It's not a requirement. But we certainly can't do anything unless there's really a project.
Well, it's the influence, you know what I mean, that type of when they come up and say, well, guess what, we got this, and it kind of sways the vote a little bit, maybe on a questionable.
It's a lot easier to do it the other way, really, because at the end of it, there's, there's no project if the planning board doesn't approve it, right?
Right.
It doesn't get the municipal approvals, there's no project anyway.
That's right.
So,
Sometimes when I'm meeting with the banks at the same time meeting with the company, the bank will ask, have you got the IDA approval? And they'll say, yes, we got an IDA approval, but we haven't got approval from the planning board. So I'll just look at them and say, well, the project will not go forward unless the planning board approves it.
Now,
It's
let
common
me just-
language.
Let me just point out, in the town of Lancaster, the planning board is only a recommending body. So any neg decks or anything that would have to be given by the town board.
Well, let me address that. We can't rely on the town seeker process unless it is a type 1 action under seeker, in which case the town, let's say it's the town, is the lead agency, and then we'd be an involved agency in that situation. We have an independent obligation to apply to seeker, absent it being a type 1 action and participating as an interested party in the project review. So that's something that you do have to comply with as part
So
of the process.
the board has to do their own seeker?
Yeah, it's not a complicated process. We do a short form. In fact, I've sent the short forms to 2 of the applicants in the last 48 hours to get that information for us. And, again, if, at least with one of those projects, I know that they don't have their approvals yet. If the board doesn't want to move forward until they have their approvals, again, that's up to you. That's not a legal decision or a recommendation. That is.
It makes sense to me that all the approvals will be in place before they come before us.
Yeah, like I said, it's just a thought, because I've seen that before, and then they kind of hem-haw around a little bit. I think it would make it cleaner. I can understand going forward, giving them, we get all the information and get everything lined up that we can, financially for them and everything, but the actual final yes, would be kind of waiting for the town to kind of do what they're gonna do.
Let me tell you exactly how it works, okay? The bank could be sitting at the table with me and the company, okay? And the bank will say, okay, we're gonna analyze your situation there, how much money we're gonna lend you, all right? Now we know that you're gonna eventually be abated for IDA pilot. And then you're gonna have cash flow differences because you're not gonna be paying sales tax. They'll figure that into when they analyze everything, the bankers are gonna figure the cash flow and how much they're gonna give and how much is assessed on. But we don't move forward unless we get all those approvals all done, and we just tell them that, look, if we got an IDA approval, that doesn't mean anything until we have all the other approvals in place. It's that simple.
So by having it go through the board approvals and then coming to Lida, that could potentially hurt developers in that they can't get their financing in
Good.
place?
Anything is possible.
From a financial point, absolutely.
Yes, and you're right, Grant. Anything is possible. Because the bank can come back and say, whoa, you didn't get an IDA approval, so based on when we analyze your situation, we think you should have an IDA, and if you don't have an IDA, we're not gonna approve your project.
The financial part and the building part
There you go.
need to be separate. So the board approving them is one thing. The bank is, the board could approve it, and the bank could just look at them and say that, I'm glad you got a building permit. I mean,
Right.
it's not uncommon for wonderful dreams and pictures and drawings
right.
to be out there, and they never come to fruition because the banks just won't. But that will, that would be a bearing. If they sit there and say yes,
You're right.
it's huge. But as far as the building part goes, we also don't want the influence of them saying, well, everybody else is blessed, why not us?
That way, and
understand
that's why I
fully.
brought it up. That's why I'm kind of like looking at it, because I've seen it happen, and it's,
What you have to remember, like for instance, what we're doing with the company that we'll probably talk about today, not only do we talk about whether or not there's IDA benefits and everything else, but I have connections that we go to the electric company and we go to the gas company, and they give grants for their project for electricity. And in this case, they've already been in contact with what's New York State Electric and Gas. PCB got a $600,000 or $700,000 grant from National Fuel regarding their project on Walden Avenue. See, those are all the crazy things that come into play. The IDA is just one part of the project. That's all it is.
Understood. So looping back to Kevin's discussion on what the board wants, for me, I definitely want the cost benefit study, the resolution, the copy of the application. Are we going to continue with how we've been practicing on the day of the meeting, we have the public hearing?
If that's what the board wants, yeah. If that's what the majority of the board wants.
I tell you
Not a
what,
problem with
makes
it. We have
it
it
a
just
lot
before.
easier for me to sell it.
It doesn't like when we talk.
No.
Lynn, it makes, when I'm selling it, if you would, you know, and it takes anywhere from 30, 60, 90 days and everything, until I get, he gets everything, if you do that, it makes it easier for me, because then we say, okay, I've already contacted 2 of the companies that are on your agenda now. They're gonna be here on June the 10th, if we have the approval, and you're gonna be able to ask them the questions directly at the public hearing. And then when you convene your IDA board, you can do your inducement. It makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, I understand that. I think for me, the issue is the turnaround time of getting this packet 2 days before and then like being informed enough to be able to research or ask questions or to be able to vote on a project. So I don't know if there is any precedent for getting information about projects earlier than what the board packet would come out, so that we're not getting it all.
This is all up to you.
So, yeah, there's no reason why we can't
It's all
get
your, it's all your call.
That would be my
The
preference.
sooner the better, that's
Right.
for sure.
It's all your call.
10 days?
At least, yeah, I mean, a week to 10 days would be great. So if we could make that happen, and that seems reasonable, and if it, from either of you, if it doesn't seem reasonable, let us know, but that would be huge.
Now, what are you saying, what's reasonable?
To be able to get all of the information about the project 10 days before the public hearing, before the
Well,
board
we
meeting.
try to do that now, though, Lynn. If you notice, like, for instance, the projects that are on the agenda today, they're not gonna be ready unless Kevin has everything done, okay, for the June 10th meeting. All right, so you'll have information on those projects today. That's something that's going forward, if everything is done, for the June 10th meeting.
Okay, if I can interrupt, I thought the board said you did not want the applications until Kevin reviewed them.
That's correct.
Right.
Okay, so they
Yeah, well,
won't have
yeah.
anything today.
The applications are not complete.
Right.
Yep.
Just to go right to these applications that we have at this point.
Yeah.
We're still gathering information from the applicants. They've given some supplemental information.
But the
So-
general information, though, about the project, usually we could talk about today,
We
really.
can, but the
Yeah.
board, what I think you're driving at, Lynn, is you're gonna have a packet of information for you, right, in advance of a vote. What is in that packet and when do I get it?
Right.
Right, I think that's what you're asking. So,
Mhm.
you know, that would include the copy of the application, right? It would include probably well, it's gonna have to include the proposed board resolution, right? You know, we have to generate the seeker information, right? You're gonna have to see that, right? So it is a process of getting it back to you. And that's all would come to you and then coincide with the public hearing happening that day. It's a truncated schedule. I can tell you, it wouldn't be great for the companies. It's a lot harder for IDA. And frankly, if we don't get things done in a certain period of time, it's going to fall off anyways, right? So I think I told you, literally in 7 days, if we don't have that notice in, the public hearing isn't going to be scheduled in time for you, right? So, you know, that's the trouble with trying to tie in my view, the public hearing to the date that you're meeting as a board.
All right.
You can do it different. And by the way, you don't have to be at the public hearings. You know, you can be, right? But that's also not a requirement. You can hold a public hearing and, right here, and that could be Paul or whoever's going to, I don't know who your public hearing officer is at this point.
That falls under the operations.
All that stuff, and, you know, that's all part of the process. But, you know, I think that's part of the, you know, a little bit of the blocking and tackling we have to work through here. Right? I mean, if we don't know who the public hearing officer is, it can be hard to notice the meeting of the hearing of the meeting. As to who's doing it. So I don't know if that's the chair's responsibility or, but we should talk. Right?
So when you say we should talk about that, like how do we move forward to find those answers out? Is that something that you would research with Dino, or, because it seems like often we get to the next meeting and we haven't really answered the questions from the last meeting. And I know we spoke about this too. You said, yeah, I don't really know who to go to. You know, who is that person? So
If
we
I
need
could
to-
just say something, your question about the public hearing officer, the old board resolutions at their organizational meeting would appoint there was a resolution that specifically addressed public hearings. And when I spoke with Jen Strong, I said, look, because I went through what they did last year to what we did. I said, here's the ones you didn't include. Do they have to be included? She said no. So I don't, that's, I don't know if that was something that would have been decided at the beginning.
What did she say no to?
The resolution setting the public hearing information.
Identifying the public hearing officer.
Yeah.
So we
There is
don't
no-
have one right now.
There is
don't
not a
have one.
public hearing officer. The chairman is the public hearing person.
All right, so
Yeah, even-
So we can't answer.
At these meetings, sure, because that's part of the way it's been structured. The board would be here anyways.
The hearing and the meeting.
Right, so by definition, he was just talking.
he's the chair.
I don't think you to a point when I'm not sure I disagree with the advice I was given.
Okay.
That's probably right. I don't know of any agency that's designating them directly. It's done.
So if we change the structure where we have, then we need to.
And you have to have someone show up
Right.
for the hearings, right? Usually in a staff IDA, that's the executive director running those.
Yeah, he runs the public hearing. What they used to do is the chairman will say, okay, Paul, read the public hearing. And that's what happens. So, but like for instance, like at 13, the one we're going to talk about today, I've been to that company 5 times already to talk. And then, but Kevin, now, once I sent Kevin all that stuff, he has other questions. And he's already been negotiating with their attorney so that everything is done when you get it in your hands.
In 4 minutes, you can give me that responsibility. I don't mind if we go that route of having separate public hearings.
Yeah.
That way it's answered and we're on.
Okay.
I don't mind reading in public, it's fine.
Yeah, you're right.
Came with writing on the board a lot, but that's,
So in the 2 minutes before the meeting starts, we need to decide today if we're going to have the public hearings 2 weeks before or at the board meetings?
no, I don't think so. I think
What's
we,
the plan, though? I do
Right.
need to know that.
do you want to keep it the same for now and then, or no?
Or we have the public hearing the same day we
Okay,
make our
right now,
decisions?
until we can have everybody with us and say, this is the
Well,
move.
we can do it for the first one and then,
Right,
and
and
then
then
take it from there and maybe change it, but,
We need more
we have
time.
everybody on board in the
Doing this
same.
for 40 years, I recommend that you do the public hearing, then you convene your board, and you do the inducement 10 minutes later. It's not a big deal.
I know, well, we're
Public hearing,
hearing,
all it is tells you what the project is.
we're hearing 2 different opinions, and I think that we're missing 3 board members, so for me, I would feel, it wouldn't feel right without our chairperson here to change the structure of how we do business.
Right.
So I would agree with, for these next projects, to keep the public hearing when it's scheduled. If we can approve to post the notice today, that would give it the time, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So that's,
And we can get the information out, distributed between me and you to everybody that needs to be. I don't know.
This all assumes that we have all the information.
Right.
The applicant's been complete, and we have a signed and sealed application and all the stuff that we need to take care of.
so that
There are
resolution,
3 projects. I would tell you 2 of them are on track to do that. There's
Okay.
one that they're going to have to rework their application.
okay, great.
But at least we're not being held up because of us, again.
And if you want, the one that we're not going to approve, the attorney is driving me out of my mind. So I turn him over to Kevin.
So there's 2, it's getting close, but the 2 projects, one of them it involves an intermunicipal loop,
All right.
which requires that we follow procedures notifying the current municipality of that project's intention to leave that municipality. That takes more time.
All right.
And, so we have to work through that, okay? And my hesitancy there is only that we are just going to send out our first notice under that requirement. That's going to result in a conversation, that's my guess. In the meantime, it's 6 days away from having to notice it. So that one, I would say, is maybe needs a little bit more time.
Okay.
And I don't think the applicant in that instance who I talked to at 8 o'clock last night is going to have a real problem.
Right.
I just, you can only move these as fast as the process moves.
Okay.
The third one, I think, is clean.
Yeah.
I think
That's Robert James Sales.
That's right. That one looks good. You guys actually induced a project for them already. They're building it on the building. So you have, it's more investment.
Walden Avenue.
You know what's great, you can actually take.
We got a break for
Four
the,
o'clock. We have to start our
a
meeting.
break.
You do it, but see, they did a 100,000 square foot facility out there, as you all well know. This is another 50,000, so it's almost like, the application almost is identical, other than the size of the project.
Okay. Leave it down. Okay, can we have the roll call, please?
Grant Getzoni,
Here.
Member Lee Master,
Here.
Member McNichol. Here. Member Reno. Did anybody know he wasn't coming?
I don't believe he's gonna be.
Mr.
I haven't talked to him, but
He's not going.
Okay. Member Ruda,
Here.
Member Tadaro.
I got an email from Dino last night saying he couldn't make it and Frank wouldn't make it.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to move a motion to turn around and accept the minutes from our 4/22 meeting. If I could have a motion on that?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Can I abstain because I wasn't here? Lisa? Doesn't matter. Okay.
Member Getzoni,
Yes.
Member McNichol, you're abstaining. No?
Or what's correct?
Should we table it again if she wants to abstain from the vote?
I wasn't here. So what's
Yeah, okay.
protocol?
Then it's, we're gonna have to table that. Yeah, we gotta table this one only for the simple fact she wasn't here to hear it, and we have to have four votes for it to go through. We can't have anybody drop.
That's correct.
So, at this point, we're gonna table that. Okay, so then we're gonna have a motion to turn around and accept the minutes
Okay,
from...
we're tabling it, so we need a motion to table it.
Yeah, okay, motion to table the minutes of 4/22. Do I have a
Motion.
to
Second.
approve? Second.
Member Getzoni,
Yes.
Member McNichol,
Yes.
Member Ruda,
Yes.
and, oh, that's it.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay, we're going to move to the tabled minutes of 2/11 of 22, 2/17 of 22, and March 11th of 22.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay?
Member Getzoni,
Yes.
Member Lee Master,
Yes.
Member McNichol,
Yes.
Member Ruda.
Yes.
Okay, bills and communications.
None.
We have, I guess, a whole bunch there that we were, where did I put that sheet? I had it here. It was, yeah, I can't find that one sheet. I had it here, and I don't see it. Yeah, we had communications, I don't believe there were any from anybody. I did speak with if people want to take down the name, Melissa Myers from the New York State Controller's Office. And I had questions I had asked her, I had sent her a letter, and she responded to me. Her number, if anybody wants it, is 716-847-3647. And she realized that we were new and that I had questions about some of these items and that, and she was pretty much saying she's going to leave us alone, just do what you got to do. She understands that we had the issues with not having an attorney and our CFO and everything going on, so she was quite, she gave me quite a bit of information, but she, like I said, she also reached out and said, anybody have any questions? She's more than happy to turn around and talk with any one of us.
Great.
So
Excellent.
that was for the communications. On the bills, I don't have the information in front of me. I did have it, and I don't know where I put it. Oh, you got it? Thank you. Okay, we have our payment to Mr. Leone. We have a payment to Mr. Spiegler. We also had a letterhead update from Duff Printing, and we've got a nameplate from Ms. McNichol on this, and we also paid for the MRB group study. So I'd like anybody to turn around and accept.
So move.
Second?
Tim moved the motion to accept?
McNichol did.
Did?
Yeah,
Okay.
second.
Oh, you second already? Okay.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay,
I didn't hear her.
okay. Member Gitzoni,
Yes.
Member Lee Master,
Yes.
Member McNichol,
Yes.
Member Ruda.
Yes.
Okay, we move to the treasurer's report.
Thank you. The report which was sent to you, as you know, the current balance in our Chase bank account is $1,407,380.11. And then the invoices, as you noted, those are still pending signature and approval by Member Tadaro as the treasurer, and then the payments would need to be also signed by Chairperson Fedoli. So those payments will probably go out next week, the ones that you just discussed. Okay? Because those still need to be addressed. So that after those, then we'd have an adjusted bank balance of $1,402,860.94. In regards to the Harris report, we did have contact from the State Controller's Office. They typically every year will have questions and comments regarding that. So working with our Auditor, Drescher and Malecki, we were able to address those comments. Actually, they were resubmitted yesterday, and we resubmitted the report, and they had no further findings. So that's been taken care of. And then regarding the audit, then also Mr. Jared Picard from Drescher and Malecki is in attendance today to provide a presentation of the audit from last year and the financial statements. So that would be at your discretion as to when you would want him to come and present that to you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Would we like to have him speak now on this as part of the financial?
Makes sense.
Matt?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I think your agenda provides for action on the treasurer's report and a separate item on the presentation of circumstances. So you may want to just have a motion on
Just on the treasury report?
the treasurer's report.
Okay.
And a separate motion.
Yeah, okay, motion to accept the treasury report?
Motion to approve?
Yes.
I'll second.
Member Gitzoni,
Yes.
Member Lee Master,
Yes.
Member McNichol,
Yes.
Member Ruda.
Yes.
Okay, bring up to our Audit and Finance Committee. That was,
That's Dino, Frank.
yeah, they're not here. So we table the report.
No report.
Okay, we're going to table that report. And do I have a motion to accept?
So move.
Second.
Member Gitzoni,
Yes.
Member Lee Master,
Yes.
Member McNichol.
Yes.
Member Ruda.
Yes.
Okay, we go on to the Governance Committee.
Yep, just a brief report from the Governance Committee. We're currently in the information gathering stage, looking at what other IDAs are doing. We'll create a written report to bring back to Lida so that we can either have more questions that we can research or start trying to find a path forward.
Thank you.
Motion to accept the Grievance Committee, or Governance Committees.
Here, Shannon.
Second.
Member Gitzoni,
Yes.
Member Lee Master,
Yes.
Member McNichol.
Yes.
Member Ruda.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to go into unfinished business. A couple different things here. We have authorized legal and transitional counsel's engagement letter and execution.
Motion to approve?
So move. Second?
Member Gazzoni?
Yes.
Member Leemaster?
Yes.
Member McNichol?
Yes.
Member Ruda?
Yes.
Okay, motion to appoint the assistant secretary. I take it we're going to go with Kevin
Yeah.
as our assistant secretary. So I'd like to move that forward for approval.
Motion?
Motion to approve.
No second?
Member Gazzoni?
Yes.
Member Leemaster?
Yes.
Member McNichol?
Yes.
Member Ruda?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to go into our projects that were tabled at the last meeting, advanced thermal systems. They're looking for another extension to, what date was that to? Paul, do you remember the date that one's going to? The extension, is that going to be for advanced thermal, the extensions for how long?
6 months,
6 months? Okay,
till September 12th.
okay, thank you.
That being said, I have to call the companies, both companies, and find out whether or not they went ahead and purchased stuff, and so they might not need it, so, because of the tabling, and what do we got, it's been like 40-some days since I brought it to the first meeting, right, Grant?
Yeah.
So I'll ask them if they still want the extension.
Okay.
And that is if you approve it.
All right.
Okay, move that to be accepted and approved.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Member Gazzoni?
Yes.
Member Leemaster?
Yes.
Member McNichol?
Yes.
Member Ruda?
Yes.
On that one, Kevin, there was a proposal, or a letter that was sent to us. I don't have a copy of the letter from the Village of Depew for sponsorship for their concert series. I believe they were requesting $10,000, but we tabled it almost as a promotional piece.
Okay, well, why don't we do the Salvatore's project
All right.
first, and then we'll get into that, I think, probably towards the end.
All right, perfect.
Because we'll get through this, and we have a gentleman there to give us his report also. Okay, on this Salvatore property, they want to extend theirs to July 8th of 2022. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Member Gazzoni?
Yes.
Member Leemaster?
Yes.
Member McNichol?
Yes.
Member Ruda?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to move to approve the 2022 federal fee schedule, which was included in our packet, which was quite lengthy. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
A second?
Member Gazzoni?
Yes.
Member Leemaster?
Yes.
Member McNichol?
Yes.
Member Ruda?
Yes.
Okay, new business, our CEO report for the new applications.
I guess that's me, right?
I guess it's you.
Well, I'm gonna ask for Kevin's input when I go on to these, but the first one, which is the Locust James project, that's the project on the corner of Broadway and Bowen, where the former Desiderio was, burnt to the ground, and now they're putting that project up, and when they went to the planning board, they called it a hotel, so that drew my attention real quick. So I referred, the attorney, that's Mr. Don Alessi, he supplied us with an application, which I referred right over to Kevin. And Kevin, why don't you, your input to Mr. Alessi as to what's going to happen with that project?
So just a little bit about this project. It involves construction of an 18,000 square foot two-story mixed-use building with a drive-through and the extended stay lodging units. I have spoken with their counsel. Under the IDA Act, what they're proposing to do would be treated as a retail project. And the application as it came into us didn't really follow that format, if you will. So I did speak with their counsel and said, I think if you're moving this project forward through the IDA process, you'll have to address the retail exceptions under the statute to allow it to go forward. Hotel and similar, and this is, they call it extended stay. Whether you call it extended stay or hotel, they're collecting bed tax for 90 days, right? So you can't really get around that from that standpoint, but there's a pathway, this is what I would tell you, and I advise your counsel, there's a pathway to do this, but you have to follow that. So it's the application, I spoke with their counsel maybe a week and a half ago, and what he said is he was going to go talk to his client, and that there may be a revised application submitted. And that's the last communication we had with the project. So it's alive, but it's, they have to come back to us to, to present a project that is eligible.
And I met with Mr. Lessie, and he is preparing another application. But once I get the application, I give that to Kevin, and then he goes from there. So we make sure that what we're doing is legally. The other question, I want to go back and one, the village of Depew, Grant was asking for that $10,000. I want to know whether or not, see, in the IDA functions, we cannot give out money, okay? But if Kevin can find some clause in the restrictions that the IDA has with money, I guess that's what we would look at, Kevin, am I correct in saying that? I'm going back, but because I didn't get a chance.
Actually, you're jumping forward, I think, according to the chair.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The chair wants to address this, I think, later in the agenda.
Yeah,
We'll address it in the end.
We'll get the.
Okay, I'm
and
sorry.
If you, if you want to go to the Robert James Sales.
All
I'll
right,
explain
yeah,
it,
which is the
please.
Bowden LLC. A couple years ago, we did a 100,000 square foot building. They bought 42 acres of land it's around Walden and Pavement. And now they want to build another 50,000 square foot warehouse facility. Again, it's approximately anywhere from 4 to 5 million. Kevin has had the application. There's a couple things missing, which he's already been in touch with the attorneys. So it's just a matter of, again, there's a couple things left. It's an eligible project. It's a warehouse. Everything is good. It's a great company. They have 7 different locations throughout the country, which they can move to real quick like. So I'm recommending that we move forward on the Robert James project, but I'm now going to turn over to Kevin because he has a couple questions.
Actually, I don't have any questions. I was just reporting to the board that I had some communication with their counsel last night, and I've asked for some additional information. They are processing that information. And again, part of this is information gathering and making sure that the application is complete. Once the application is complete, then I think the board is in a position to have the application to review. All right. So we're still gathering some more information from them, but this is a project. This is a warehouse project. Is what IDAs do. Right? It's a pretty simple one. There's not a lot of legal questions here. It's really a question of the applicant completing the project application, which is full information.
He has the current warehouse on Ransom in Walden, right?
Pardon me?
Stainless steel warehouse on Ransom in Walden?
See,
No, everybody, I
that's,
talked to his
Grant,
neighbor.
what I did is I worried about this one also because they're in on Walden Avenue in the town of Chickawaga. So I had to worry about an intermunicipal move. So I've been to the company several times. So what I told him, his name is Bob Gooden, is the CFO. I said, Bob, I've got to worry about an intermunicipal move. Are you moving anything from the town of Chickawaga? And he said no. So this is a warehouse where there are 100,000, and this is an additional 50.
Right. His neighbor likes him. His commercial neighbors like him.
So it's a great project, and it's something that we should be doing. Now, my problem is though, I know you put a date of what, the 17th, Kevin?
19th.
The 19th. So what I'd like to do is, and I already talked to Bob, and to see whether or not we can do a public hearing and an inducement for the June 10th board meeting on this project. Now, Bob will be here if he has any questions regarding the public hearing. So that's if Kevin gets all his information that we're looking for by the 17th, we should be able to put it on for a public hearing. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, some of the information we don't have is just some of the basics, like how much do you need in sales tax exemption, right? You can't run a cost-benefit analysis without understanding what the numbers are. So you see how it's a little bit of a domino, right, effect here. Now we're going to try to, work through the timeline that Paul outlined. But some of it is dependent on some things that we talked about earlier that we don't, we have to work through the cost-benefit piece.
Right.
If you don't have the cost-benefit piece, you don't have that piece of the puzzle done, and you wouldn't be in a position project without having that done. So I guess my thought on this, just in general, is that this is going to be a little fluid over the next week or so. Some of it's dependent on the company, some of it will depend how quickly we can get the MRV cost benefit piece up and running. So you can have a public hearing on an application. You don't have to take action.
Right.
I would say that too. If that made the board feel better on that, then you can hear it out. We can get you information. I don't know that the question you have is do you call a public hearing when you don't have all the information? And I guess my view on it is if I'm getting all the information, I have it all, then I will tell Paul that and say I have it or I don't. But if you get to the 19th and I'm still missing information, I don't think we should go forward. I don't know that you have all the information necessary to process. So it's a little bit of a window here, right? I mean, it's the 13th, the day's basically over.
So I have two questions. One is, will there need to be further action once you speak with Dave? Is that something that can immediately happen, or our board has to make further action to, if he's amenable to what we're proposing?
No, the board has approved him to provide that service.
Right.
I think we're talking about mechanics.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's like-
You have to come back on that.
Okay.
But I think the other underlying point you're making, I think, Lynn, is that the 15th is Monday, right?
Right.
Right.
The 19th is Friday. Like, do we think we're going to have a cost-benefit analysis completed within that window? I can't tell you that that's going to be the case. I don't know that.
What I could do, Kevin, I usually can push David, and he'll get it done for me within a day. But I can't give him the go-ahead to do it until I hear from you.
Right.
See what we're saying? That's where you're playing games with contractors and construction people and so on and so forth. And
As long as the holdup is
So,
not us.
well, is it advisable to make the motion that pending their receipt of all of the information, we would host the public hearing, and therefore, if we don't have it, that resolution would go to no public hearing? Or do we want to wait?
It's a pleasure of the board.
yeah, it's your pleasure.
Preference?
Well, at this point, I'd rather make sure we've got all the information and the numbers are pretty solid before we,
But if we make the resolution pending the fact that we have all of that information by that date, it allows it to move forward if they're able to gather that in the week, or it lets it just move to the next meeting.
yeah, we can go forward with that.
But I got-
That would be all right.
But I have a question for you though too, because if Kevin tells me that he doesn't have the information, then I can't do the implant study.
Then it's
So
not a-
that's null and void.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yep.
so that
So
you
it's a
know that.
contingency,
So we
right.
don't, if you don't have an implant study in front of you when we do the public hearing and the inducement, you can't do it.
Understood.
Okay,
Yep.
all right.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Put
then,
that in there, the
do we
clause.
have to schedule the public hearing at a specific time, at 4:15, or,
But I think the practice has been for the IDA is to do it immediately before the 4 o'clock meeting.
before the
So,
4 o'clock meeting?
3:30.
Okay.
All right.
Oh,
Something like that. Or you could do it at the start of the meeting, 4 o'clock.
well, we're already here for our work session, so that's.
You're here at 3
Yeah,
at this point, so we could kind of,
Yeah, you do your public
Wedged it
hearing.
in there?
And then you can, after you do your public hearings, then you convene your board. So you might want to do it,
I think you need some time, right? It's a public hearing.
Right.
So, I mean, sometimes we assume that no one's going to show up, but you don't know that, right? So you have to build in some time, and if you're going to, if potentially we have some public hearings, right, back to back, you're going to have a presentation from both companies and an opportunity for questions.
and they've both had phone calls. They've already put June the 10th on their schedule to be here if we go forward with the public hearing. So you'll be able to ask all kinds of questions for them at the public hearing.
So a 3:30, 3 o'clock? I mean, we could do that
I was
right
gonna
at the
say,
beginning
might
of
as
the
well
work
keep
session.
it right
Sure.
at 3, and this
Yeah,
way,
great.
we've got more than enough time.
So
We
I
seemed to use
will-
it up last time, or this time, so.
Make a motion to schedule a public hearing for 3 PM on the next date of our Lida board meeting, contingent on the receipt of all of the information that we would need to be able to make a decision by the 19th, May 19th, correct?
What
Okay.
projects are you doing a public hearing for?
I think
The one
when
for,
speaking about
that's the Bowden.
Yeah, just the one at this
Just-
point.
Robert James.
Robert James
Well, we're going to talk
Sales.
about the other one now. So what-
Right, yeah, but this is, we want to make sure this one's we take care of this.
You took care of both, now we're gonna talk about the other one.
Second.
Make a motion to accept?
Correct.
Second.
Thank you.
Member Gazzoni?
Yes.
Member Lee Master?
Yes.
Member McNichol?
Yes.
Member Ruda?
Yes.
Okay, the next one is 1352 Property LLC. They're buying several acres from the Casilio Development Company, and Casilio is going to be the developer. It's a 38,000 square foot facility, approximately $5 million. It's DKM Sales, they're a manufacturer, and Kevin and I have been working on whether or not we're going to do the 7 or 10-year pilot. This is the one where it's about $5 million. They're relocating from the city of Buffalo at 1352 Genesee Street, and I've been there like 5 or 6 times, and I've seen them all, everything. So it's eligible because they're a manufacturer. We just have, Kevin and I have to determine whether or not it's a 7-year or a 10-year pilot. And what we're going to do is the application is here, everything is done, but Kevin's got like about another 7 questions that he's got to do, and that's going to be the same situation that we're talking about Bowden, whether or not we want to, if he gets all his information and I get the time to do the implant study, we could put it on the agenda for June the 10th. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin again because I'm asking more questions, but he's got more than I do.
So, I think Paul's giving you an overview of the project itself. The legal issue with this project is that because the company is proposing to relocate from the city of Buffalo to the I think it's the village of Lancaster.
Yes.
There are provisions in the uniform tax exemption policy that provide for notification to the city of Buffalo of first the draft application, and then ultimately what we're looking for is an interaction with the city and sign off from the chief executive officer of the city of Buffalo, the mayor. That process would begin today in terms of sending them a draft application, or Monday, probably Monday at this point, with a letter from Paul that would be addressed to the economic development representative for the city of Buffalo, advising them that there's an application pending. We've received this. We're providing it to you pursuant to the provisions of the UTEP, and explaining a little bit about the project and saying this is what they did. Now, some of the information we got from the company in the last couple of days included the sites that they looked at within the city of Buffalo that they ultimately did not find to work for what their project wants. That's part of the inquiry, and really part of the policy. The state, separately, and maybe even more importantly, the IDA Act does not allow the board to give incentives when you're moving from a company from one place to another. So they have to show in their application that their relocation preserves their competitive position in their industry. And that is something we have asked them to provide. I do believe I got something this morning from them again, so I have to look at it. I don't have a better report on it in terms of what they provided. But that's a finding you, as a board, would make as part of your resolution, that they have given you sufficient information to make that conclusion. And again, it's a little bit like our retail project that we were talking about. There's a hoop that has to be jumped through. It's a legal requirement for the board in order for that project to pass muster. So we're working with them. And again, I keep coming back to the calendar. Like, are we going to have it all there? I don't know that. Okay, and I thought that the idea that was presented for the prior project was a good one, which is, it's okay to move forward with public hearing if you have everything. The difference with this project is we haven't really launched the intermunicipal piece yet. And the company in its application has indicated that it has not reached out to anybody from the city of Buffalo. The UTEP says that we at the IDA strongly urge them to do so, and on behalf of the IDA, I advised the company of that requirement last night. So that hasn't been done yet, and I would just, again, these are board discretionary decisions as to how you want to move forward with projects, but this one has some hoops to jump through that in order for us to get through that window, they have to be done. And when I spoke with the company rep last night, they know all this. I've explained it in detail, what the process is, what we would be doing to advance their project through that process. But it also requires them to
Would it be, with this having so many little extra hooplas to kind of, would it be all right to kind of push it back one month until you get all the
See,
information?
that's where I get into a problem, because then I get developers, I get construction guys that call me, well, wait a minute, now you mean I gotta wait until you issue the sales tax letter till July? That's where we're coming from. That's the reason we talk about the timeframes, okay?
Right.
Because I get flack from the realtors, excuse me, from the realtors, from the construction people. Mary Powell's already called me, who sold them the land. This is right next door to where Derrick Manufacturing is. It's not on Walter Winter Drive, it's on, what's that, Commerce Parkway? And they're right next door. And it's a great project, okay? But the point is I got all these other problems where if we hold off until July, and that would be their fault if it is, because Kevin wouldn't have all his information. But if we can get it on the June meeting, the June 10th, I've already scheduled for them to be here, if we get what we're looking for. You see where the problem
Do
is?
you think that the information that they have to get from the city of Buffalo, and that is that something you think is reasonable within the time frame we're looking at? Or is this kind of like shooting at balloons?
Well, you got to.
I mean, I don't mind it if we word it the same as the other, to where if you don't have it, then it just
I don't-
drops off.
Yeah, I don't see why we wouldn't. That way,
No.
if they got it by some chance, then great.
But
we can go
I
forward.
also don't want to throw too much pressure on him trying to
It's not a
get,
prerequisite for us, for them to have the city of Buffalo
No.
item complete. It's like they're trying to check boxes, and if ours isn't in a particular order, if that's one less thing for them to do in June, I would say move forward with June.
okay, well, we'll word it the same then.
Part of the notification to the city would be to tell them that that's when the public hearing is on the project.
Now, the city of Buffalo has no say-so as to whether, this is just notifying them of the movement, and that's an intermunicipal move policy. But we notify, and the addresses and everything else is all there. They have no say-so as far as whether or not you guys can approve this project. It's just that we have to make sure that they're comfortable with the company movement.
So if they have all the
And
paperwork,
it's in a section of the city, it's at 1352 Genesee Street. It's in the east side of Buffalo, it's right next to where the Wonder Bread used to be, and Fugeron, Genesee, and it's a tough area, and they're gonna try to sell their building at the same time, okay? And it's a husband and wife type of thing, and they do wonderful work and everything else. So it's into that legal thing right now. And I will not move forward until I get word from Kevin, so I can't do an implant study again.
Same wording.
Kevin, do you think it would be sort of a faux pas for us as a municipality to not give the courtesy of time? Or would they look at that public hearing date and not think twice about it, the city of Buffalo?
Assuming we send it on Monday,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost a month
Okay.
of time, right? And, there is no time period, that maybe to answer your question a different way, the intermunicipal move provisions of the UTEP don't contain any time limits. It doesn't say in there you have to give notice 30 days before or 60 days
Right.
before. It's really about engagement. Paul said it's notice, right? And, there'll probably be some discussions, right? I mean, the whole idea, this goes back a long time. There's a history of companies getting raided from the city to go to the suburbs. Any project that went to Amherst in the early 2000s, there's cases on it, and frankly, benefits were clawed back because of those deals. Courts ruled against the IDAs in that case because they didn't follow the rules. They didn't make the findings under the statute. So it's a two-pronged issue, right? You have the policy requirement, which we can follow. We have to. Process is process, right? Where you get yourself in trouble is where there's a policy you have to follow it, right? So we have to do that. And layered over that is the determination by the board that you're convinced that the company is doing this to protect its competitive position. And that's what I've been explaining to the company, that you need to bring that in front. You can't get that information without the company telling you that. How do you make that determination, right?
And Kevin has already been in touch with their attorneys. Everything is working, but it's not done. So this has been almost 45 days and many trips to the company and so on and so forth. It's just, again, it's a similar situation to the one that you just said for June.
So I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing for 3:30 PM for Property LLC on the date of our next Lida board meeting, pending the receipt of all the information by May 19th.
Okay, can we say by 3 o'clock? Because if I have to get it to the B.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
I
Yep.
wouldn't
Yep.
let them submit it at 6 PM because it's not gonna go. They're not gonna let me put it in.
The
Oh,
receipt,
you're talking
yes.
about
The
May
public
19th
hearing.
deadline is 4 o'clock, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
so,
don't think that she gave a time frame, but we just.
Yeah, we can, that's fine. We can add that.
Let me explain something to you now. And we have talked about this before, many, many years ago. You can put the public hearing notice in the Buffalo Evening News, but it'll cost you $300. This one, I think it's only like $25. And so you would have more time for the Buffalo Evening News if you want to spend more money.
We don't.
But what we're saying to you is, I'd rather have just do the penny saver thing, but then you got me on a time constraint. Okay, so that you know that. I can put it in the news, but it's gonna cost, it's very costly.
I think the recommendation of adding that time frame in, that time is fine.
Yeah, this way it'll drop off if they don't meet it with all the requirements.
so can we just say 3:30? Because if they get it here at 4, that could be.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve with the addition of the time.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Member Gazzoni?
Yes.
Member Lee Master?
Yes.
Member McNichol?
Yes.
Member Ruda?
Yes.
And we come to our presentation from Malecki. Thank you for being so patient.
Sorry, it's the only way I can get it done with you, you know. I know. Oh, I know.
By the way, sir, before you leave,
That's it. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, so my name is Jared Picard. I was the manager on this year's audit, December 31st, 2021. Luke Malecki was the partner on the job. He's at a conference right now, so he couldn't make it, but he wanted to be here, so. Right in front of you is just a short little packet over some stuff I wanted to go over. Basically just talk a little bit about our products of the audit, what we provide to the IDA, some of our required communications that we have to make, and then I've just got a couple slides of some of your financial statement highlights over the past couple of years. So in terms of the products of the audit, the main reason we are brought in is for the basic financial statements. We're hired to provide an opinion, basically on whether those statements can be relied on by an outside party. We believe we've obtained enough audit evidence to say that yes, they can be, and we plan on issuing an unmodified, or what is essentially a clean opinion. We don't have any reportable findings, so there's no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. In addition to the statements, we also provide a management letter, and here is where we would provide any kind of recommendations, or in the case of the IDA, that letter just kind of has some future accounting pronouncements that we include in there, things you should be aware of. They're not really going to make a big deal to the IDA just because your structure is so simple, but just things to be aware of. The auditor communication letter, this is where we outline our responsibility and your responsibility under generally accepted auditing standards. This would also be where we would disclose any significant accounting estimates or any kind of significant accounting policies. The final item here is an investment report. That's another New York State requirement. It's a standalone letter, essentially, that just says that you're in compliance with general municipal laws specifically for your investments. You guys really just hold cash, so it almost doesn't even apply to you. As Mike mentioned earlier, we also assist with the Paris report. That was originally submitted back in March. There's a 3/31 deadline on that. And then it's totally complete now. They're happy with it, so that's all set. The next slide, next page, our responsibility under GAS is to come in as a third party, a neutral third party, to look at your financial statements and your supporting documentation, kind of without any kind of interference or without any kind of bias. In addition to those actual audit procedures, we also help with the preparation of the financial statements. But the way it kind of works is we own the opinion pages, management and the board kind of owns the financial statements themselves. Significant accounting policies and significant estimates. In terms of estimates, there really aren't any. Your transactions are probably just cash out. It's not like somebody like the town who has kind of like big long-term liabilities for things like pension and health insurance and stuff like that. Those don't really exist here. Policies, again, they haven't really changed from the prior year. It's just pretty simple transactions. We are, as a firm, and all the people working on your audit are required to be independent, and we feel, and everybody at our firm has to rep to the fact that we're not related to anybody in management, related to anybody on the board. So we feel that we can come in and provide that third-party opinion. The final item there, other matters, we also have to disclose anytime we have a disagreement or if management's being uncooperative with our questions or requests. We didn't have anything like that. We had full and complete access to all the books and records, and we feel like we can establish our opinion based on those records. So the next page there is just kind of a bar graph that shows your cash position. And as you can see, it's been pretty stable the past 5 years, right around $1.1 to $1.2 million. Mike kind of mentioned that it went up, so you guys must be doing pretty good this year so far, I'm assuming. But so even though you kind of see a slight dip from 2020 to 2021 of about $23,000, there's actually about $75,000 owed to the IDA at year end. So on the next page, even though cash went down, revenues kind of outpaced expenditures by a pretty good margin. You had about roughly $130,000 in revenue, and that's mostly closing and agency fees. There's a big, like $75,000 payment from Tops that kind of got pushed back into last year. And then on the expense side, it's about $78,000, and that's primarily professional services, as well as about a $30,000 payment to the town for administrative services. The last page just kind of shows your net position. So this is just your assets less your liabilities. And again, pretty stable throughout the past 5 years. Generally speaking, revenue and expenses are right around the same. So you guys are always kind of covering yourselves pretty well. And there's really just not that much activity. So, but overall, a very kind of financially strong position if you look at your expenses. I mean, you guys could essentially have no revenue for like 15 years and still be, operating, paying all your bills. So that's pretty much all I had. If anybody has any questions, feel free to answer them now. Or I have some contact information for me and my boss, so feel free to reach out if you have anything that comes up. Or
I had a question on page 13 of the report, where it talks about item 5, related party transactions, and then tying into item 6, the economic factors.
Okay.
So it talks about our administration expenses and employee salaries, and then the following statement under economic factors talks about, as a result of potential legislative or board actions, the agency's ability to generate the administrative fees necessary to support the operations may be limited in the future. We're in a process right now where we're going to be looking at potentially adding staff and changing how we manage our operations. But from what you just said, it seems like we would be in a pretty stable position, at least in the short term, to handle that, correct?
Correct, yeah. We include that paragraph specifically because there's been like a constant push at the state level to kind of limit what IDAs, and I think actually at the county level too, to limit what you can do and how you can operate. So this is really almost like a contingent liability that's just kind of hanging over your head, that this is a possibility that if this happens, yes, you'll be able to kind of operate, definitely in the short term, really the long term, but eventually they could kind of kill you if they wanted to.
Okay. And is there a point where Drescher Malecki could come and talk to the board when we're all here to talk about liabilities of if we did add staff and what that would do if we had to, like what that financial impact could be in the long term if we had to add in, I don't even know the pieces of it that we would be looking at financially, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's something we could do. Really, Mike would probably actually know probably better than we would, though. But I mean, if you're going to talk about bringing on full-time staff, whether they participate in, the town's health insurance policy, are you going to create a health insurance
Right.
policy for them, or they're probably going to be in, the employee retirement system, and there's a long-term liability that goes with that. But we have had clients in the past that have, a single person with the, an industrial development agency that's a participant in ERS.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
Anything else?
I'm all set.
All right, well, thank you so much for your time. Have a great weekend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to take a motion to accept the presentation.
Motion?
Second.
Member Gazzoni?
Yes.
Member Lee Master?
Yes.
Member McNichol?
Yes.
Member Ruda?
Yes.
Okay, we'll open up public comment. I don't believe there's anybody here, so I believe we can close that. A motion to close the public comment.
Make a motion. Second.
Member Gazzoni?
Yes.
Member Lee Master?
Yes.
Member McNichol?
Yes.
Member Ruda?
Yes.
Okay, open the floor for comments on possibly donating.
Is there a way to donate from the IDA or marketing expense where we could promote with the Village of DePue for their series?
So I have not seen the specific request.
Right.
I know it came up. The issue you have with the expenditure is that it has to be further into the purpose and mission.
No, he doesn't.
IDAs are economic development agencies. There are restrictions on how you utilize your funds. I can give that general guidance. I don't have the exact request.
Right.
Okay, so basically, the bottom line is it's got to be something really for the IDA. It's not just to better the community around.
It has to be a little more focused.
Okay.
I mean, I think the question you have to ask yourself as board members is, if you are willing to do that, then what's the next thing you're going to be asked to do? And it's civic, things that might fit into the bucket turn into civic things, turn into other asks. I think that's, even though it's coming from a municipality, right? The question is should you be sponsoring something?
Lynn, you might be able to help me on this one, because I'll help you with it. It doesn't have to be 10,000, it could be anywhere from 7 to 5. But we've had these things come before the Lancaster IDA report. You remember when they were trying to do the time clocks out here? They wanted money from us. And I don't know if we did that one. I don't remember if one of the attorneys somehow worked it out. Then they did the fire museum over here. They talked about that. So there was some kind of transactions, and I've been doing this for like that long, but I don't remember whether or not we did it. That's why I referred it to Kevin, because I don't know. I mean, we should do it because it's something good for the Village of DePue. But does it have to be 10? But I don't know if we could do.
So-
could we?
Won't be
Could
10.
we? I guess Kevin, I look at you and say, could we do anything at all?
I just want to read, the mission of the Lida is to promote economic growth and development in the Lancaster, New York area. The Lida assists qualified private sector industries and businesses by offering incentive programs to encourage the creation, expansion, or relocation of businesses in our community. I don't feel that this falls under the realm of what Lida should be doing.
Okay.
I do know that we do purchase like tickets to the golf outings and to the chamber outings and stuff like that, where the chairman can write that off. But I do know that they made like a donation.
But this is,
Chamber of Commerce golf outing and things like that.
this is saying that that falls outside the parameter of
Yeah,
what the
it's
scope
It's
is.
below the, I think what he allowed the chairman to sign, what, $200 or something like that, I don't know.
All right.
I don't know.
We'll get a copy of the letter and then,
Yeah, I would probably share with the board, there's the authority's budget office, which has their opinions on the authority's budget office, but they provide written guidance and policies and stuff like that, and I know there's one on discretionary funds.
all right.
Greg, you know what I'll
Yeah, if
do
you
is-
could,
when I have lunch with my guys,
Consistent
on the 18th?
Yeah, if you can look into that a little bit more, because there's a couple of things that turned to my head going back, and these were the type of things that I wanted to kind of, because they're things that would help the community, but not necessarily,
The private sector.
it would help the community overall, but it's not actually building something. It's helping establishments that are here to,
I was looking more from the promotion piece, if we're promoting.
See, yeah, in a venue like that, I mean, those venues usually ask businesses to advertise, to promote with a donation. So like my company would be on all their advertisements. Do we want Lida on all their advertisements?
I was looking.
Is there a good,
I was looking at the idea, because they just came asking for money, so I was
Yeah.
looking at the idea of,
like it's only,
just a grant.
I was looking at the idea of wrapping their stage with Lida information, and
like it's only.
Codes.
It's only.
that's where,
I'll
that's,
check with my IDA guys on the 18th, and just to see what they would do, just,
all right.
and then I'll refer it back to Kevin, just to see whether or not we can.
Kevin, could you possibly send me a link or whatever information you have on the discretionary purchases, and I can give it to the, okay.
Yes, and exactly where it's on my computer. I can log into it here, I don't have the password. But yes, I can get that information to you, and it's maybe a 2 or 3 page thing. I mean, this is a little bit of a gray area. I mean, to be honest, and Paul brought up something entirely different, but there's times where, you know, you're out promoting what the IDA is doing, right? And, you know, then you get into the travel policies and stuff like that. I don't know that we have a travel policy, that kind of stuff, but you might not because you don't have employees, right? I mean, some of that infrastructure is not in place.
Like him.
So I'll send it to you, or I'll send it to Lisa, she can circulate it to the board, and you guys can read it at your pleasure.
And just one last thing, do we want to authorize Lisa to talk to Mr. Fowler about going to Clarence to learn on how to do the
The pilot?
pilots?
I thought you were gonna wait till the finance, because isn't the finance committee they're not even here?
Yeah.
That's, okay, we're going to wait for them? All right, I just wanted to bring that up to make sure
Thank
we're
you.
all aware of that to get that straightened out. All righty, I take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Did it get second?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Member Gazzoni?
Yes.
Member Lee Master?
Yes,
Member McNichol?
Yes.
Member Ruda?
Yes.
we're out of here on your time.
I know, thank you.
Thank you to everyone for being patient with me.
Kevin, do you have a pen?
only have
Good job, okay?
20 more days?
Maybe we'll keep you.
I just need you to sign the
One day at a
letter
time at this point.
for Kevin.
I said, I like this whole lot. I've known it for years.
You want me to?
I have no problem.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Just, well, I'll cross
I
out.
did.
Okay, I'll print my name.
Yeah.
Mr. Meyer, how are you?
Do I have
Give Kevin this one now, so he has it.
determination pilot thing for,
Janine still on that board? Is Janine Casella?
I have, I'll give you, you want a copy of it?
I'm filing her.
Okay, I think I got it.
I do love her.
Yes, you take care of it.
You want me to do one for Robert James Hill? Let's give him a second.
Always open, it can be peace and quiet time.
Oh, well, it's a manufactured warehouse. Well, here, let me.
This is a lot of information, I don't know, but, yeah, like I said, I think we're on the right track.
Because I have the real estate experience, the board experience, and Mike
No, I
Numbers,
didn't make it.
Well, that's what,
That's right.
Let me tell you what I do, okay? Here.
it just bothered me only because we keep making these things off. You know,
Tom Sweeney go,
That's, you know, from our strategy, if one company really connects with us, and
projects. Yeah,
and that should be really-
good. Yeah, I'll participate as an alternate. I'll let Mike know just to keep me in mind if he needs me.
I couldn't make that determination.
Whoever's after us will be very happy because we'll be straight.